to climb these mountains and stuff like that. It's a tricky subject, but
it's a tricky subject. But at the same time, I mean, you need to look at it as even taking pictures. You know, people get all bent out of shape these days about pictures and showing people the Adirondacks and this and that. No, it's my place. It's a secret. Blah 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 blah. But like the amount of people who don't live anywhere around here who want to see it. They want those pictures. They want to see what it is. They love it so much. But like, let's be real. You know, not everyone is going to be able to pick up life, pick up shop, and move here like you did. Like most people can't do that.
I'm actually forming a career and like something that maybe one day I'd love to support my family through photographically. Because originally I was like I classify myself as an international landscape photographer, but the Adirondacks is my dedicated subject because I've traveled to like a ton of places, and even out of all those places that I've traveled to, I am always coming back to the Adirondacks, and that's where I found my niche. And the thing is, at the end of the day, I'm not just posting pictures because I like to take pretty pictures. Like, to me, it's actually like, it is what I want to do with my life. It is it's essentially, it's my career, and I focus in on it and hone on it like that.
Sure. It's really nice to have an opportunity to, like, almost a reason to pursue it in a single season in particular.
Sure.
Like having that little nudge as to, yeah, it'd be cool to do, but at the end of the day, if you don't have to do it, maybe, you know, it's like when we did Marcy's Skylight Gray, we finished a 14-hour day around, I don't know, what time did we finish?
4-ish.
4 or 5, and then you were back to go hike Colden.
The Trap Dyke.
Like less than 12 hours later you started, or 12 hours later. You probably wouldn't do that if you didn't need to, but you needed to. So it's a nice
the weather window as well.
Well, it's just like it's nice having the opportunity to kind of force you. You know, a lot of people, you know, they get all upset about, you know, why are you going too fast or this or that? You're not enjoying it. Well, anyone can enjoy the mountains and however they see fit, but it's nice to have that little extra motivation and reason to get out there, because I mean it's tough on the body, and after a 14-hour hike to go right back out there, and not even just right back out there. You did like the last 6 miles of the Marcy Skylight Gray hike the next day at the start. So you just went backtracked right back.
Every single time I walked something or saw something on the trails, like on the way out, I remember you took your snowshoe and you stepped on the trail and made this really funky design, and you said, Jonathan, you're going to walk past this and you're going to look at that and be like, oh, what is that? Oh, wait, that was James making some funky design in the snow with the snowshoe. And I stopped and I looked at that exact same thing right after the Lake Arnold turnoff, and I was like, I made it.
It wasn't a funky design. It was a secret letter to you. I guess you didn't decode it.
It was code.
It was code, but I can't tell anyone what the code was. Yeah, fantastic. So that gallery is going to be June and July, so that's awesome. So pencil that into your summer plans, and it's free, so all you got to do is be able to walk in and enjoy.
Unless you buy something.
There's always a catch. How dare they? That's great, though. I'll definitely be checking it out. Sounds like a good time. And I've seen some of the pictures, and I've seen the summits that he took pictures of on quite a few hikes now. It's going to be awesome. They're fantastic. So let's keep talking about this. So how have you broken up the single season Winter 46? So let's just start from the top. Take me back. Hike number 1. Let's just go through it.
I've had a lot of people ask me what is my tactic for the 46. And I honestly think in terms of what you hike and how you hike it, it can be the same in the winter as it is in the summer. Okay. A lot of people will start easy with like Street and I, Cascade Porter, or Tabletop and Phelps. I think historically, at least this day and age, over 75% of people are starting with one of those 6 mountains. In terms of the bigger mountains, it's like Algonquin or Marcy or Big Slide. Those would be the other ones. And after doing the whole 46, it really, really changes your mind and allows you it doesn't change your mind, but it helps you envision these mountains completely differently in the way that like it needs to be done. Like you really start to get it. Because in the beginning it's overwhelming. It always is. But the second time you go through it, you're like, okay, great. I know how to do it now. And I am going to just, I don't know, like calculate it, do it differently the second time. So I really just kind of sat down and thought out methodically, like, okay, what peaks do I want to go do, and how do I want to approach this? And I was like, all right, you know what? Street and I was the very first peaks that I actually documented on my YouTube channel, and they were the longest ones ago that I did, and I was like, all right, I want to do Street and I as my first. I think that'd be a great way to kick it off, and then I'm gonna do it according to difficulty until about the halfway mark, and then I'm gonna choose peaks because I have to keep photography in mind. I need to choose peaks then according to the weather, and also what I'm doing that week in terms of work. And I only work like 2 or 3 days a week, but so let's see here. So kind of like December 21st is when I started. December 21st, I went and did Street and I, and then I took 2 weeks, went on break for Christmas and everything, and then came back and then did like Cascade Porter, and then you joined me and we did like Tabletop and Phelps, and then that was a
big slide first.
It was big slide previously,
and then
right?
Tabletops and Phelps.
And I did like 3 or 4 back-to-backs this season so far, and so you did Tabletop and Phelps with me, and then once I got back to the car, 12 hours later, I got back into the car and went to do Sunrise for Colvin and Blake.
Yes, that's right. I remember. And you went with our boy Stefan.
Correct.
Hello, Stefan. Yeah. And I remember the look on Stefan's face because we were talking as we're hiking back, and he was like, I am tired. The idea of going hiking again the next day, I don't know if I can do it. And I was saying basically what I said to him, I said, it sounds terrible right now. And when you start hiking tomorrow, it's probably going to be terrible. But eventually
especially because it's the club road.
Yeah, and you'll get into it, and then like eventually after a while you'll forget about it, and then when the day's over you'll be so stoked that you went. But right now, oh yeah, the idea of hiking tomorrow as well is atrocious.
The worst time to think about your next hike is when you just finished hiking,
or when you're not even
every
done
single
yet.
time. Like it's weird. You can't. It's one of those feelings that you can't actually perceive that like what it feels like to not want to hike unless you have put yourself through something like that. Because now that I feel great and that I'm not hiking, I want to go hike anything.
Sure.
You know, I'm stoked about my next hike, which is going to be the Dix Range. And when I was done with Alan and I was like walking, I got out of my car once I drove back home and I was walking down to my apartment. I was like, wow, my legs feel awful. But then like I go to sleep, had a good sleep, woke up, stretched a little bit. I was like, all right, I feel great. I'm excited now. I want to go do it. So it's like one of those things you kind of just got to know that once you get on the road and you started hiking that next day, the chore starts to turn into a mission.
Sure.
And I mean, the goal was that day was to sunrise Colvin, but ended up not sunrising Colvin. It was like an hour and a half too late. And Stefan did have to part ways because his hip was really, really hurting him. But he wanted to experience and see what it was like just to kind of start to putting himself through that.
Sure.
Because it was new to him as well. And
it's definitely hiking one day and then going directly the next day for more high peaks is 100% an experience that you don't understand it until you do it. And it is not as easy as it sounds. Especially when you're hiking in, hiking out. You know, if you camp at the base of a peak, it's a little different story. But so Stefan, for example, wanted that experience, and you know he understand. Like it's painful, it's tough.
It is.
I'm not super into it personally. I've only done a couple back-to-back hikes in the high peaks. Period. In the fall I did Cascade and Porter with a buddy who drove up from New York, and then the next morning. So we got back at like 9, maybe 8 or 9 o'clock at night, and then we signed in at 5 to do Phelps and Tabletop. Even that day, and I mean, that was a quick turnaround. That was the summer, and the conditions were perfect. I was dead, let alone doing it in the winter. You know, you're just outside in the winter in general for 12 hours, 10 hours in the cold, not hiking. You still are just completely wiped, but let alone hiking in the winter. It is no joke. It's difficult. So it's amazing what you've been able to do with these back-to-back hikes.
So there's something that I think everyone discovers about themselves in the journey of the 46. It's different for everyone. But I think something that a lot of people can relate to is you can do so much more than you thought you could. And I definitely grew up the type of person that thinking I was not like athletic at all, and I was like, you know, I was more of like the power, less endurance type person, and I don't know why. I used to hate hiking. Like, that's one of the reasons why my first high peak ever, nipple top, solo. No, sorry, not solo. Like, it was the only one that I didn't do dial or anything like that. I did it with my other friend, and it was an awful experience because I was forced against my will. Thank you, Aaron. You know who you are. And
we appreciate you, Aaron. Good work.
Yeah, I also finished with Aaron on my 46 too, so it was a really great experience. But I think one of my favorite things that can attribute to why, for me personally, it's so easy now to do a back-to-back, is because I've been able to unlock and discover my actual abilities as a human for myself, and mixed with the stoke of wanting to go and do it, it kind of just makes me forget about it that next morning. Once you start to understand how your body reacts to something like that, and you start to see that your body is improving, that you're able to put on those miles. For example, tabletop Phelps, and then next morning doing Colvin and Blake, that was 28 miles in the course of like 24 hours. And I mean, at the end of it, I ran back to the car. Once I signed out, I ran the half mile or quarter mile, whatever it is, back to the parking lot. And I was like, Stefan, I feel great. My legs hurt, my feet hurt, but I felt great. And then like an hour later, I was like, okay, I don't feel so great now because my body rested. But I think the one thing that I can attribute to a lot of this with, that I think a lot of people should really take note of, there's two things. One is the stoke. You need to be excited.
Absolutely.
And that's a hard thing for a lot of people to do, especially right at the end of the hike, and that night or that morning waking up. But it's about really mentally preparing for it and being excited to do it beforehand. But then other than that, it's being able to pace yourself. So when you get on the trail, finding that perfect rhythm, how your body is handling the temperature regulation, the hydration, the food, the speed, understanding how your body works in that situation is vital to how you're going to perform the rest of the hike. I spent, like, a lot of the times, I can hike really fast. But on certain things, I'm going to be like, I'm going to just go simple, easy pace, something that I know I'm going to get to the summit eventually, and I'm waking up still, and I just want to kind of just get in, I just want to work it up. And once I finally get to the summit, I'm like, okay, I feel really good. Blake is right there. I'm going to go down, and heck, it took me 2 hours one way to get to Blake from the summit of Colvin, an hour and 45 minutes back, nearly, and that's with like resting and everything. So it was probably a 3-hour moving time. And in the summer, I mean, that's only like an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours a hike. But even though I just took my time. I also hate Blake. Blake is, in my opinion, the absolute worst peak there is. And in that video,
if you feel that way.
Yeah, if you go back and watch my Colvin and Blake video, I spend a legit 3 minutes sitting down and ranting about the mountain. And I've never done that before in one of my videos, but I thought Blake deserved its own podium spotlight of why I believe it's the worst mountain. So go back and watch that, and maybe you'll agree if you disagree. Because Kuxakraga, I love it.
Kuxakraga has a lot more unique elements to it than Blake does, which therefore makes Kuxakraga a little higher up in my book in particular, because
and it has good views.
It has
unique views.
Just, it has a memorable experience to it.
Exactly.
Compared to the 700 down, 700 up to Blake.
And Cliff. A lot of people will discount Cliff because it's just like a blah, 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 whatever, no views or whatever, but it's only a 0.9 one way.
Cliff is my arch enemy
right. I know, you've
on this podcast.
Yeah.
Damn you, Cliff.
And then other is Seymour. If you did it after the Seward Range, it's pretty brutal.
It is.
So I would say Seymour probably takes second place for me. But anyways, so back to the whole thing, like the stoke mixed with the pace and knowing your body is a huge thing. And once I did that was my first back-to-back. Then I did another back-to-back, which I think was Tabletop Phelps, and then no, Tabletop Phelps, Colvin and Blake, and then it was Skylight Marcy Gray, and then the Trap Hike. That was my second back-to-back. And then like my third back-to-back was see here. I did something the day before the Seward Range, I think. I don't remember what it was, but it ended up being like I don't know, like 35 miles in the whatever. I don't know. I can't remember, but I've done like 3 back-to-backs now this winter. And even though it's only been like 2 months that I've been doing it, still a lot of it's kind of